I've been a fisherman all my life. When I turned 17, I started fishing. I fished for 33 years.
So how did you get the job in Shelburne with the Destiny Empress?
Well, a friend of mine had just heard that I had an operation. I had a triple bypass, and he had just called me. This is about a year later, and he called me, and he was asking me how I was and all this, and I said I was good, and we was talking. And he said, we were talking for a while, and he said he was going down south and taking a ship down south, an old Coast Guard ship. I automatically said, oh, do they need anyone else? And he said, yes. So I said, well, talk to Sheree, and she said I could go. And then I said, when do we go?
What was the work supposed to be? What were you understanding that you were going to do?
Well, I was going to help, while the ship was on dry dock in Shelburne, I was going to help them do odd jobs on the ship. It was an old ship, so a lot had to be done.
And then there was a trip south.
Then in March, we took the trip to Antigua.
What was the purpose of that trip?
They said there was a survey team down there that wanted to, was going to lease the ship. But the ship was so long on the dry dock, it was a lot longer than they figured. The time we got down there, then they said the survey fell through, and the survey people got another ship, and they didn't need this.
And then when did you see the Destiny Empress again?
No, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks they called me and asked me if I wanted to come down again.
So you went and you took it to boat where on the second trip?
Well, we didn't take it anywhere. I was helping the engineer, and then Dean fired the engineer. I don't know why. And then I came home.
And then you went back again?
And then I think it was 2 months later, 2 or 3 months later, they called me again, asked me if I wanted to come down and take the ship to Trinidad to get below the hurricane belt. So I said okay, and I flew down, and we took the ship to Trinidad. Took 2.5 days, I think, or something like that, and I was there a few days and came home.
Did none of this strike you as unusual, the flying back and forth, engineer getting fired, and all this with an empty boat?
Yeah, no, not really. No, I never thought nothing about it.
So then they asked you on the big trip?
Yeah, then they called me back about 3 months later and asked me if I wanted to go to Spain. So again, me and Sheree talked it over. So
In Shelburne, you were helping with the refurbishing. There was some refurbishing done on the ship.
There was refurbishing. They said they were planning on spending $300,000, and they ended up spending $900,000 on the old ship.
So why did you accept this job?
Thought it was a low, not a stressful job. Plus I was making $200 a day. Plus I got a chance to go on the water again. Plus I got to go down south, where I'd never been before.
Take us then to the fourth trip. When did they contact you about going on this fourth trip?
So I left for the fourth trip November 16th. But me and Sheree talked that over again because it was getting close to Christmas. But we figured that we could get down there and back before Christmas, long before Christmas. But I didn't know once I got down there, things took longer, which I should have known because the old ships, when you're on a ship, things take time.
So you went down to meet the ship in Trinidad on the fourth trip?
Got on the ship from Trinidad. I met the new captain.
Why was there a new captain?
Because the other captain, they told me that he had fell and broke his ribs, so he couldn't make it. Now I thought we were going to race straight to Antigua, but when we got out an hour and a half out, Dean Rotary, the manager of the ship, said, "Oh, we have to stop in Union Island for to pick up an engineer."
How did they explain the trip that they asked you to go on?
They explained it that the guys that had been on the ship before I got down there, they said they'd been working a long while and they wanted to give them a break for a couple of days before we took the big steam to Spain. So that was why we went on a little vacation. So the boat was anchored off Union Harbor. It wasn't in no security. All the other ports we were in, it was all secured. There was security at them ports, but when we anchored off Union Island, there was no security, no nothing. Everybody went ashore.
And that's significant because...
Well, I heard after. My lawyers told me that they figured that was when the trucks were probably loaded aboard. I don't know, but that's what I heard. We left for Spain. It was 18 days out, I think, when the Spanish police boarded us. Well, actually, they were in little Zodiacs. It was just come daylight. Couldn't see who it was, and the captain woke me up and said, "What is this?" I said, "I don't know. Is there pirates around here?" Because they were hollering, "Stop the ship! Stop the ship!" And we never had any idea who they were or what they were. They were shooting at the ship. So I run down a couple decks below and to try to look out the window, but when I got down there, I was scared to look out because they were shooting at the ship. I thought, well, now I don't want to get shot. I run back upstairs. The other guy in the wheelhouse hollered, "Get down!" because they just shot the windows out. So I got down on my hands and knees. Next thing I heard behind me was someone coming up the stairs, and I was scrambling to try to get in the wheelhouse on my hands and knees, and they come up behind me and pushed me to the ground, tied my hands behind my back and told me not to look at them. So for the longest while I didn't know who they were. I still thought they were pirates. I thought, oh, we got nothing here, we're gonna get shot.
What did you think pirates would be after?
I thought they'd be after money.
So then what happens?
And then they took me in a little room. And I still didn't know who they were because I had my head down. They told me not to look at them. I didn't look at them. And one guy was in there sitting on a safe. And he said, "Where's the key to the safe?" I said, "I've never seen that safe open. I've never seen a key to it. I don't think there is one." He asked me 2 or 3 times. And one of the other guys slapped me in the head when I said I didn't know. And then he'd ask me again. I said the same thing. I've never seen it open. Not all while I've been aboard. The guy gave me another slap. Anyway, and then he said, "Why are we here?" I said, "Money." And then he just take them out. And that when I stood up and turned around, there was a guy in the doorway. And that's when I seen Politica wrote across his shirt. So I thought, oh, good, we're not going to get shot because these are the police. Then they took us all and they put us in one little room off the wheelhouse. Threw some mattresses in there, so we all stayed in this one little room. And I took wheel watch for six or 8 hours, and then the captain took wheel watch for 6 or 8 hours because we were 2 more days getting to where they wanted to take us. They took us up north.
What did you think at this point? What did you think was going on?
They said they were looking for drugs. So I thought they were looking for drugs, but I didn't. I thought, man, I've been all over this ship everywhere, and they'll never find any drugs because I've never seen any drugs. So I really didn't think they'd find anything.
So Sheree, what were you thinking when you didn't hear from him for 2 weeks?
I got a call at work from our son Cody. He had said that the Spanish police had just called our house and said that his father had been arrested. And I came home from work and immediately thought that it was just a cruel joke. I really did. I said to Cody and our other son Darren, we're not going to say anything about this to anybody because it's obviously a joke and we'll get it straightened out tomorrow. So we didn't say anything to anyone. The next day, I Googled the Destiny Empress on the internet. I don't know why, I just did. And the whole newscast came up as to what had happened, that yes, it actually had been an arrest. There were $625 million worth of cocaine on the ship.
When did you find out about the drugs?
Well, I found out they found drugs on there after I had been in the infirmary and in the hospital probably about a month. Then they put me down with the other crew, and in the module there's 130 people. And that's when they told me, the captain told me that they had taken him down to the ship and they took 2 days to search it. And they found drugs in under a floor in one of the lounges.
And you had witnessed some of the searching while you were still on the ship.
Oh, while we was on the ship, they searched the whole ship, and they went through it everywhere, and they couldn't find anything.
What's the ship like? Can you tell us about the ship?
The ship was 65 meters long. That's about 215 feet long. It had 1, 2, 3 decks. It was a big ship.
And people say, how come you didn't know the drugs were on there?
I was through that ship everywhere, and I'd never ever seen anything. 'Cause I'd always, every night I'd go through the ship to make sure nothing was leaking or anything was broke, make sure everything was all right. I would do that, and the engineer would do that too, also, he told me. Just, I'd even go down in the hole and just to make sure there was no water coming in. I just wanted to be safe.
So tell us about your time in jail in Spain. About the facilities, about the people, about your life there.
Well, I was in 3 different prisons, 4 different hospitals. In the second prison, one of the women doctors would not let me bring a translator in. I don't know what she thought, that I could understand Spanish. I couldn't understand a word of Spanish.
So what was happening at home here in Digby during those year and a half while you're waiting to find out what's going on with Philip?
The community immediately came to help us. They did. The friends, family, and even total strangers offered support, both financially and emotionally. I couldn't have done it without them. They started a letter writing campaign for Philip, which really made a difference because his spirits were low. And my biggest fear was that he would be forgotten in prison. So I courted the media. I tried to do everything that I could to keep his name out there so that people would remember that he was a Canadian citizen that needed help.
Being only able to talk to Sheree for 5 minutes was terrible. It was just throwing my heart right out.
And Sheree, how was it for you?
Hell. It was. I never knew from one day to the next whether he was actually going to make it, because I knew he was sick. And I knew the dangers.
Why did it take so long for this to get to court?
That's the Spanish law. They're allowed 4 years. They can legally hold a suspect, once he's charged, for 4 years before he goes to trial. That's their law.
Being sick and being in prison at the same time, that really took its toll.
And being in prison on the other side of the world.
Oh yeah, not being, there's only a few people that could talk English, and most of them couldn't understand my accent. They had to ask me something 2 or 3 times, or they just didn't bother asking me.
So you did see Sheree and the boys a couple times.
Yeah, at first I didn't want them to come over for about a year and a half. I didn't want them to come over because I knew it would just tear my heart out when they left, and same with Sheree, she knew the same thing. But then finally I said, you got to come over. it was about 2 years in, or
Yes, it
maybe
was.
maybe a little longer, a couple months longer.
Yeah.
I said, you got to come over. I need to see you.
What were the visits like?
The visits were great. We got to see Sheree and the boys, and we got together for like 4 hours, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then me and Sheree was together for 2 hours, just me and her. So it was great. We got to talk over all kinds of stuff, and it was hard to see him leave.
So Sheree, you're at home waiting for news when the trial's going to be.
And waiting and waiting and waiting. And every few months we would get a ray of hope from the lawyer. He would say, well, I think maybe the trial will be, in 3 months or 4 months or whatever. And finally, I think it was maybe in June, we were told that the trial would definitely be in the fall. And we were excited. We were really excited because there was always the possibility it could be another full year before he went to trial. So when I told Philip, I expected the same reaction, excitement, and that wasn't what happened. He immediately...
Yeah, I thought it was going to be like in 2 months, and it was 6 more months, and I just thought, oh no, 6 more months. Then everything like that took me a few days to get it in my mind, and once I got it in my mind, I mean, I was all right. Once I had 2 or 3 days to get my mind worked around it, I was okay.
And tell us about the trial.
Well, the trial for me, I was sitting there. I never learned Spanish, and everything was in Spanish except what they asked me and what they asked Reggie. And that's the only thing I understood. So after the trial, I had to call her, and she had an interpreter. I had to call her, and she would tell me what went on in the trial.
And what was it like, Sheree?
It was difficult because we didn't know what was being said either. I tried to read the faces on the judges. There were 3 judges. I tried to just make sense of it all, and it was next to impossible to do that because we didn't understand what was being asked. We understood his testimony because he did have the interpreter. But for the rest of the trial, we had no clue whether it was good or bad or otherwise.
So what did you understand when you left Spain at the end of the trial?
When we left Spain, the trial was postponed for another week, and our biggest hope was that a decision would come right away so that he could be home for Christmas. But that didn't happen. And they did. The lawyers did try to warn us against getting our hopes up.
How many years is Philip in Spain at this point? How long has he been in Spain?
3
years.
3 years. He'd been there 3 years at that point.
And,
So we
and that
thought
was in
that
November?
yes, and we thought, the trial was to finish December 3rd. And we thought, these judges, first of all, they're going to see right off the bat. It was obvious during the trial, according to the interpreters, that it wasn't about Philip. It was about the men that were on land and the captain and the manager of the boat. Like the crew were rarely questioned at all. So we felt that it was obvious that he was innocent, that the judges would see that and show some compassion and let him come home for Christmas.
So when the trial wrapped up on the 3rd, you were expecting a decision any day or any week?
That's what we were hoping, that a verdict would come down. And there was never a time limit as to how long they could take to come back with a verdict. They could take as long as they wanted.
Tell us about driving home to Digby.
Driving home, Sheree's friends all rented her a limousine, and we drove home. We started driving home. It's a storm, but there was people started from Sackville on the side of the road, waving to us. And on different overpasses on the way down, there was people with signs and people waving and hollering at us. We tried to stick our hand out the window. Couldn't stick our head out the window because it was storming too bad. And then we got in Digby, and it was just amazing. There were so many people come out in a storm like that to see us.
What did you see when you drove along the road through Conway into Digby?
Just hundreds of people with signs and hollering, and actually the machine slowed down, so I had my hand out the window and people was grabbing it and shaking my hand and hollering. It was just, no, I can't explain it. It was just, people were so great.
The limousine driver said he'd never seen anything like that in his life, the show of support. He was amazed.
Yeah, he was.
What did it mean to you guys to have that much support there?
This is exactly what I said to Philip when we got at the bottom of hospital hell. I said, do you really think that all those people care what the verdict was? I mean, they knew he was innocent.
Yeah. Great town. Great country.
Well, folks, you've heard the story. My name is Peter Dickey. I'm the chair of the Halliday Family Support Society. What is the Halliday Family Support Society? It's an organization. We're registered with Joint Stocks and Societies here in Nova Scotia, and the purpose of our organization is to raise money to help this family. You've heard the story. It's a very tragic story. It's a story that could happen to anybody. You think you're immune from this? Well, forget it. You're not. The family has been ruined financially. They've gone through a terrible emotional struggle. Philip has had very serious health issues while he was in prison and is not able to work. Now, we look at what is the cost of all of this? What did this take besides a human toll? It's taken a tremendous amount of money that the family had to come up with. The legal fees, the travel were approximately $150,000. Philip has been without work for the last 3 or 4 years, so it all adds up. We're talking to this ordeal to an innocent family has cost probably $250,000. So what is our aim? Our aim as a society is to get the word out across Canada. The people from Digby have been very, very generous. They've helped in every way they can, and we don't want to ask any more from the people of Digby. But we would like to get the message out, and I started right at the very beginning when we started this society with an analogy. We have approximately 250,000 people in Atlantic Canada. If everybody in Atlantic Canada contributed 10 cents, we would have $250,000. Now 10 cents doesn't sound like very much, and it would cost more to send that in the mail with a stamp. But when we have people, and we have had this in the past, people who have walked up to me and said, how can I help? I said, well, you can make a donation. And I had one individual hand me a check for $1,000. Now that just paid for 10,000 people, their 10 cents. So the point I'm trying to make, we don't need a lot from a few, but we need a little bit from a lot. And anybody that would be willing to help out this family, we would like to see them get back on their feet. It was not brought up in the original story, but they had to sell their home. They've had to sell vehicles. This beautiful home you see them in right now with the nice cupboards is rented. They're in a rental home. And I personally, and our society, which involves about 40 people that are registered with the society to help out, would love to see this family get back on their feet. So anything anybody can do out there to help us, we would certainly appreciate it, even if you sent 10 cents, because the first contribution we ever got was from a little Sunday school class of 8 children who put their 10 cents in a bottle and decorated it and loved to the Halliday family, and that was our first donation, 80 cents from a little Sunday school class. Now, you sometimes ask, well, what can I do to help? We've put a plea out to the churches to give us a hand. I'm well aware that a lot of the churches are struggling, but if they even decided, let's have a special offering this Sunday, just for the Halliday family. There's service organizations out there that could put on breakfasts. There's many, many things that can be done. And let's all get together, folks. Let's help this family that's had such a terrible plight. And if you can look at this, see this video that we're putting together, and look at this family and think that they are international drug runners, well, you certainly didn't get out of it what we're trying to portray. So I'd just like to thank you. You will look on the bottom of your screen. You will see how you can contact us. We have a bank account at the Scotia Bank in Digby. We have a P.O. box, and that information will all be on the bottom of the screen that you can see this, where to send things. I'd like to thank everyone very much for your help that I know we can anticipate, and we want to wish this family all the very best. Thank you very much.